What's up, guys, and welcome to video 3 of the What is Intertextuality series. So this video is going to focus on the next forms of intertextuality, starting with allusion. And it's important to note that this is allusion with an A, not illusion like, say, a illusion that a magician might do. Allusion is reference to another text, and that may also be reference to a person, a place, or an event, as you'll see. What's really important here is that the audience or the reader, they have to make the connection to what is being alluded to. So there are 4 types: literary, cultural, biblical, and historical. Literary meaning it's an allusion, a reference to a text, and remembering what a text was from an earlier video. Cultural meaning it's an allusion of something in culture, in modern day society, that people have seen or understood. Biblical is something that may be a reference to something religious. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be to the Bible itself. It can be any religious element from any religion, but biblical is the name we give it. And historical, be an allusion to something from history. So I want you to pause the video here and see if you can identify which type of allusion the 4 images are in this slide. So the top left is an allusion of the biblical type. It's making a reference to Apple and the Adam and Eve story. The top right is a literary reference, a literary allusion of the Shakespeare story Romeo and Juliet, as is mentioned in the lyrics. The bottom left is an allusion of the Trojan horse, so it's a historical allusion. And if you don't know what that is, have a little Google. And the bottom right is the story of the 3 little pigs. It's a cultural allusion and making use of the game Angry Birds. Now, it can be used in film allusion, not often done. Appropriation is much more common, but one of the examples is that of The Matrix. Now, The Matrix is often confused as a form of appropriation to the story Alice in Wonderland. Now, Alice in Wonderland itself has been done many, many times, okay? There's a Disney form of appropriation, there's a Tim Burton form, but The Matrix itself has much more allusion than it does appropriation. Now, it is spelled out to you a little bit in the scene that is on the slide here, where Morpheus mentions that Neo must feel a little bit like Alice, and is then offered a red pill or a blue pill. But there are numerous other allusions within the film, being the follow the white rabbit, Neo encouraged to take a bite of the cookie, the cat, and the choices that are often made throughout the film, as is in Alice in Wonderland. Now, the next form of intertextuality that we're going to look at is parody. Now, parody is done many, many times, and it is a funny imitation of a serious piece of writing, art, or music. It's often done to poke fun of something as a form of entertaining the audience. Now, this can be done in films, as we've seen in the other examples. One of the more popular versions of that is the film Scary Movie. So Scream was a late 90s film, the original version was at least. It's been sequeled many, many times and appropriated many times as well. Scary Movie was a parody of that. It was poking fun at the Scream story, almost suggesting, well, how can all these people keep being killed the way they are? But it's important to note that Scary Movie wasn't just a parody of Scream. It actually made fun of a lot of things going on at the time, and several films had some parody references to it. There are many other examples of films doing this. Some other examples would be the I Hate Vampires film. Now, The Simpsons have parodied just about everything you can think of. I want you to pause right here and see if you can identify the 4 parodies that The Simpsons are poking fun of in this slide. Go. So in the top left, you've got the famous selfie taken by Ellen, still to this day the most retweeted tweet on Twitter. At the top right, you have a very famous art piece by Salvador Dali. Now, remember, I mentioned earlier that text can be pieces of art, paintings, drawings, etc. The bottom left, you have Frozen, and the bottom right, you have a music video by Pink Floyd, perhaps one of the first music videos to ever incorporate animation in it. So I want you to pause right there, and in 60 seconds, list as many examples of parody that you can think of from The Simpsons. Now, if you haven't watched much of The Simpsons, then just think of other examples of parody that you can come up with in 60 seconds. Go. Awesome. So, wrapping things up, we focused on 3 types of intertextuality, but it is worth noting that there are several more. In fact, some of them that you might have heard on and some that are frowned upon in English. For example, plagiarism, and that's taking someone else's work and directly copying it. Although it should be noted that Picasso, the famous artist, did say, "Good artists copy, great artists steal." But some other forms that you may use are quotation and potentially even translation. Calque and pastiche are also some forms. So I hope you've learned something from these videos. Now it's time to get on with your work.